Welcome everyone to the Electrical Culture of Safety Livewire program, where we delve into all the complexities of creating a culture of safety within the electric utility industry. In each episode, we feature interviews with subject matter experts, industry leaders, safety professionals, and field personnel from across the industry, where we discuss ways to develop a collective reflection of the perception, attitudes, and shared experiences of the safety culture within our industry. Welcome to ECOS Livewire.
You know, one of the things I talk about sometimes on some of the speeches around the country is I talk about a really good lineman and I talk about a great lineman that leaves a legacy, and the difference between the two, where the really good lineman knows his work. He knows what he's doing. He's got it down. But the great lineman that leaves a legacy, they're the linemen that they continue to learn until they can't do it no more. They continue to learn. They take aggressive steps, reading books on communication, leadership skills, going over the regulations and things like that on their own time, or help sharing. Maybe they get involved with sharing this, because I think sharing is like you do, Mark, so much sharing, and you're saying you're doing all this and learning so much in the last 2 years. Well, what are you doing? You're sharing what you're learning, you're sharing, and continual learning and the application of it, the practicing of it, and the cementing of it, programming it in our mind is we've got to be in that attitude of just continually learning, continually evolving our bandwidth. Just keep it rolling, man.
Yeah, I struggle with folks that aren't willing to share, right? Mm-hmm. If you're sharing, it means you're learning, right? Because you're continuously gaining knowledge that you feel is important enough to share with others, right? If you're just making assumptions that, hey, Brent, I know you know what you're doing, so I don't have to tell you nothing. Just go do your job. Well, what benefit is that to you? And what benefit is that to me, right? If you and I are continuously sharing information throughout the day's work, that means we're both learning. We're both learning from each other. You have a different perspective than I have, right? So you may see something different or understand something different or take something different away from your experience than I did. If we're not sharing those, neither one of us is learning, right? We're just, you've kind of done it how you've done it, and I've done it how I've done it. We're just going to keep doing it that way because we think it's the right way. And so sharing that information is so vitally important to our industry for each one of us to continue to get better, right? Because everything is evolving. Now we're bringing renewable energy into the picture, right? And so that's new for everyone. And some are going to pick it up quicker than others, but we all got to understand it. It all plays a role into the systems we're working on. Regulations don't change that much. Every once in a while they do. But it's still, even with that type of stuff, it boggles my mind sometimes how, something's been a regulation for 15 years and we're still not following it. And it's meant for your personal protection. So essentially, in my mind, what that's saying to me is, standing in front of that class is, if you think, that doesn't pertain to me, or I don't have to follow that, or we've never done it that way before. Mm-hmm. Well, essentially what you're saying is, I don't care about myself because I'm willing to take a shortcut, and say, I don't have to do that. I've never done it that way. I'm not going to start doing it that way now. You're just essentially saying to me and saying to everybody around you, I don't care about my safety, and I sure as heck don't care about your safety, right? And so, unfortunately, that's still out there. I don't think it's anywhere near what it was, 20 years ago, but it's still there. I see it. I go around and not all the time does people have to say things. I can pick out the people in classrooms that just have that, yeah, I'm here because my boss told me I have to be here. I don't really want to be here. And I'm not really going to pay attention or participate. I struggle with those folks because, if you're not willing, here your company is paying for you, right? Taking you out of the field. They paid, thousands of dollars to get somebody from the outside there. They're giving up your day's wages to sit in a classroom instead of be a productive worker.
Right.
And now you're going to sit there and say, yeah, whatever. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. I'll put in my 4 or 6 hours in a class and then I'll go about my way. You can't tell me nothing I don't already know.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, that's sad. It really is sad.
Yeah. You see it, but, our job, like you all going into those classrooms, going into the conferences, creating and building and sharing a presentation, that's part of our job during that presentation, during that training moment, is we see those things and we try to upend the stagnicity and pull that person, we recognize it, and pull that person without calling them out or her out, but pull that person in a kind manner of empathy, pull them out of the mud, right? When you see that.
Yeah, with everything I just said there, I kind of, in most cases, I mean, there's some that you just can't get through to, but in most cases, you can set that individual up in class to kind of be successful, right?
Yes.
Give them the opportunity to share something or share a story or share an experience that they had with whatever you're there to talk about or teach. And most times you can bring those folks out of that.
Yeah.
Let's call it stick in the mud, right?
Right.
And, and actually flip that around and make it a positive, to where I've even had some that have been that, standoffish at the beginning of a class. And by about halfway through the day, they're coming up to me at breaks and saying, hey, this happened to me, or, whatever the case may be. And so, yes, you're right. It's our job as trainers, not to babysit, but to try to almost will those individuals to say, hey, listen, man, the funny thing is, too, a lot of times it's the more experienced or longer tenured folks that you have this problem with. And it's like, listen, man, you have a heck of an opportunity that maybe you didn't have when you came up through to say, listen, I want to share with you guys what I've learned and maybe what I didn't have coming through my career. I want to give you that opportunity, and I'm going to share some of my information and expertise with you so that you don't have to deal with what I dealt with. And so, there's definitely an opportunity there to reverse that trend.
Right. Yeah. So another antidote. Let's talk about an antidote here as far as reversing that trend. You all with T&D Power Skills, you all put on every year Train the Trainers Conference. And to me, that is a huge antidote to instill and place into the hearts and minds of the utility workers, especially those that should be in a position of leadership and also as far as influence. And I totally believe that T&D Power Skills, the Trainers Conference, I totally believe that is a great antidote and a healing process to instill a whole different mindset, basically a renewal or resurrection of that person that was maybe complacent. And he started getting into that funk, man. Talk about that.
Yeah. So, our annual trainers conference, this year will be our 6th annual, in Orlando, last week, I believe, 3rd or 4th week of March. And so, yes. And the one thing different about our conference is really it is a trainers conference, right? And everything we do there is around training. Yes, there's the vendor exhibits, and that's kind of where the sales and everything takes place, and showing off your products and bragging about your products, and that's all great, and we love it. I'm one of those vendors. Outside of ISPC, I have my equipment there as well. But the bottom line is the actual learning portion of that conference, the trainers conference side of it itself. We really strive to make that all about learning, right? If you come to our conference, you're not going to sit in a session and have a 1 hour sales pitch on somebody's product that they're trying to sell. We strictly try to nip those things in the bud. We want folks and presenters coming to the trainers conference and presenting on things around training, whether that's train the trainer, whether that's how to present training, or how to or different types of training, right? We'll have some folks come in there and do presentations on different types of craft training. But we do that intentionally because we want to stand out. We want people to have a conference opportunity to come and really learn and take some good things away from the conference that they can go back and put into motion at the company they work for, right? Hey, I saw this guy at the trainers conference. He was talking about this, and I believe we could do this here at our company, and it would make a heck of a difference in what we're doing every day when it comes to our training or whatever the case may be. And so we do that intentionally, believe it or not. And we put out a call for speakers every year, and we get the dozen and a half, what we call the professional speakers that want to. And again, I'm not putting down professional speakers. There's a place for them everywhere. There's a place for all of us everywhere, right? There's some conferences we don't go to because it's just not up our alley, right? And so we're not going to waste our time going there and trying to preach to people that aren't interested in what we do. And it's no different the other way. We want people coming to the trainers conference, presenting and doing sessions on things that pertain to training, right? And so we've done a pretty good job of it. We've gotten really good feedback. Every year the conference continues to grow. We kind of outgrew San Antonio. We're going to Orlando this year, a little bit bigger venue.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I know yourself and Bierer Meters is getting involved with us as a platinum partner, and we greatly appreciate that. And it's going to take folks like you and others to, say, hey, listen, this is something we need to do and something we need to back, and we need to, we need to keep pushing this and getting people involved that can make a difference, and because safety and training is so important. It's unfortunate that every time budgets get tight, the first thing that gets cut is training, right?
Right.
And I get it. Training isn't putting any, money on the table. You're actually kicking money off the table, right? But you got to look at what that training's doing and the resource that you're trying to improve with that training, right? And it's ever so important to continue to give your folks the continuing education and refresher training they need to be at the top of their game.
That's right. So, Mark, where can they go? Somebody that's listening to this, how can they sign up? Where do they go? What website do they need to go to sign up for and start participating on a regular basis at the T&D Power Skills Trainers Conference?
Yeah, so you can get there from either one of our websites. You can go to ispconline.com, or you can go directly to the T&D Power Skills website, which is tdpowerskills.com. No and in there. It's just tdpowerskills.com. And you can find all the information you need on the conference, or if you want to be an exhibitor, if you want to present. I think the window I think the window is starting to close on being a speaker. But if you're sitting out there, saying, "Hey, I have this specialty in training, and I'd like to come speak about it," I'm sure if you gave us a call, we'd definitely take it into consideration. But yeah, visit either of our websites. You can Google it too. You could 2020. Well, I guess it'll be 2026 T&D Trainers Conference. I'm sure it'll pop up on there as well. Yeah, check our websites out. There's a lot of good information. Same on the training side of things, right? With everything that we offer, all our offerings and what we do and what we're about is all on our website. We just redesigned our website last year. Went live early in 24. And so everything we do and all that is on our website. You can visit that, again, at ispconline.com. You can reach out to one of us. You can call the office. I mean, there's tons of ways to get a hold of us. And awesome. We'd love to talk and discuss how we can help you essentially make your organization better. So
yeah, no doubt. Better, more alive, man, more content, and feeling more fulfilled too. Yeah. Well, we'll have Mr. Jeremy, our videographer, put a slide at the end, Mark, as far as your contact information, and tdpowerskills.com and also ispconline.com. We'll have him put that on, so everybody will be able to contact you and the other folks there and get things lined up. Real quick, I like to talk about. I had a fun time with you, man. We were at the incident prevention conference there in Charleston, which I thought Charleston was a wonderful. I'm a little biased since it's South Carolina, right?
Right.
And my wife was able to join me. That was like really nice. But I thought that was a great venue. And the day before last, you gave a presentation, and I had no idea what was going to happen. I didn't know your slides or anything like that you prepared, but you had a presentation that two parts, and on grounding. And it really was, to me, the most well-liked, because I was at the last day and Mr. David McPeak asked everybody that was at that closing speech ceremony, what do you want to call it? The closing get together. And he asked, what was your favorite? And yours came up. I'm not kidding. I'm not just saying it. But yours came up more than anybody else's. And I didn't know. I sat kind of in the middle, and because I wanted to hear you. I want to learn too, right?
Yep.
And so I'm in there, and you're going, and then all of a sudden you get up to the Bierer Meters grounds tester slide, and started talking about grounds, temporary protected grounds, and man, everybody just started raising their hands and asking questions, and before I knew it, I was kind of working a little bit with you on that speech, that presentation, and I didn't expect it. But what was really cool is the rest, and that was kind of early on, and the rest of the presentation, and even the second part, which was a later time, to me, everybody was hungry for what you were sharing. Just give us some of that.
Well, so I think one of the benefits that I have had in my career is wearing several different hats, right? So, as you mentioned in my bio, I went to college for electrical occupations, and then, prior to that, I was in the military. And then I got out and I worked in industry as an industrial electrician before moving into the utility sector. So I went through an apprenticeship in the industrial world, and then I went to work for PPL. And at that time, you were being hired as a laborer. And so they didn't really care what experience you had. You were going through their apprenticeship again. So I had the opportunity to go through 2 apprenticeship programs and kind of figure out what worked and what didn't for me, the learner. And then I became a supervisor. And part of that being a supervisor, we used to have to go oversee apprenticeship classes when it came to them testing out of different levels. And so there was I guess you could call it a test out committee. There was a couple supervisors, and there was always a bargaining unit representative that put on those test out sessions. And so I very quickly got to understand as a supervisor, and after being in the trade for a number of years, both as an apprentice and a worker, I kind of got to understand where the gaps were in our training program.
Yeah.
And then when I became a trainer, I had the ability to say, all right, I'm going to close some of these training gaps. And that's just carried over into ISPC, that I can look at training from the individual sitting in the classroom or in the conference room. I can look at it from the supervisor's perspective of, okay, this is what my people need to know so that I'm confident to send them on any job I need to send them on. And I also have the ability to look at it as a trainer. And when I'm building training, I can look at it from 2 or 3 different perspectives and say, is this really hitting right? I said earlier when we started talking today that I don't care how much of a subject matter expert you are, if you can't connect with your people, the training realm probably isn't for you. You really need to be able to, and so, this presentation that I did in Charleston has been tweaked probably over the last 3 or 4 years, right? And every time I go do another training class, I probably tweak a slide or 2, right? Because somebody asked a question that I never expected, or somebody brought up an example of something and we went on a rabbit trail, and then I left the class that day and I'm like, I got to put a slide or 2 in there about that so that we capture that, right? And so to your point, and we've talked about it all episode here, the continual learning and evolution, right? And so just because I'm the guy standing in front of that conference classroom that day teaching grounding and bonding doesn't mean I'm the know-all be-all, right? I learn just as much from every class I teach, or I shouldn't say just as much, but I learn something from every class I teach that normally I incorporate back into my training because it's good, right? And so, that day, we've really started to talk in our grounding and bonding. There's some things that we're strategically doing at ISPC when it comes to grounding and bonding to get the point across to folks about equipotential grounding. And at a high level, those 2 things are your TPGs or your PPGs, right? Your personal protective grounds, and the importance that they're in good working condition and that you inspect them and test them regularly, right? Because it's a part of your PPE. For so many years, we've thought that grounds, all right, I just put grounds on either side of my work area and I'm golden, right? They're going to protect me from everything. That is so far from the truth, it isn't even funny. And the second thing is we've started to incorporate, and you saw it in a couple of my slides there, math into our protective work zone. And as I put grounds into that protective work zone, I'm going to show you using Ohm's law what that's doing to the potential voltage and current that you could see across your body if you're one of those pathways in the work zone. And so there's some very strategic things that we've started putting in our presentations. And then the last thing, and I do this with every training I ever do, whether it's a conference, it's kind of hard to do in your webinars, but I teach with a question and answer mentality. If you're coming to one of my classes and think you're just going to sit there and listen to me talk for a couple hours, it's not happening. You're going to be involved. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. We're going to have a lot of discussion because the folks in the room, I'm only as good You're only as good. Anybody's only as good as the exposure and experience they've had throughout their career. So when it comes to training, there could be somebody sitting in that room that knows more about the subject I'm teaching than me. Or maybe not more, but they have some specific pieces of that presentation that they're an expert in, and I'm not. I know about it, but I'm not the SME in it. They are. And so if you don't get that information out, you're not doing justice to the class, right? And so training isn't about just showing up and saying, here's the material, let's go over it. I'll try to answer any questions you have, and we'll go about our merry way. That's not training, right? Anybody can do that. I could give you, Brent, my grounding and bounding course, and you can go to Glendale in October and just read the information off the slides and present it. But that's not a trainer, right? That's not what we're looking for. And so that's why I always say you could be the smartest guy in the room, but if you don't know how to connect with the people you're trying to get the information through to, you might as well not even go do it because you're not doing either of you justice. And so, but it's very deliberate. And I honestly didn't know I was going to call on you that day in that conference until I got darn close to there. And then I started talking about the temporary grounds and the grounds tester. I'm like, hey, I got Brent sitting right here in the room. Hell, his company makes this dang thing. Let him talk about it. He's the expert. I know about it. I know how it works. I've used it many times. I know how to troubleshoot grounds, all that.
Yeah.
Am I, per se, maybe a little bit of an expert in using that? Sure. But you guys are the ones that built the dang thing. You're the manufacturer. So, hey, Brent, how about temporary grounds tester? You explain it, right?
That was fun.
It just happened to be, just happened to be there, and I took the opportunity, and sounds like we're going to do a class. Actually, we're going to do a pre-conference class out in Glendale ahead of the IP show out there in October, and we're going to tag team this thing. And so,
I won't be able to tag team that much, but.
Well, hey, every little bit counts.
No, but like I said, I went into your class because I want to keep learning. So tag teaming, guess what? That kind of puts me in a position to where I better keep learning.
Well, and this is one of those things too. And I'm not afraid to admit it. If you go back to when I started part-time for ISPC, probably back in late 20, early 21. My knowledge in grounding and bonding from 2021 till today has increased tenfold, if not more. And a lot of that is because the people that I'm surrounded by now, right? The Jimmy Vaughns, the Danny Rains, the guys that know this stuff in and out. And I've sat in multiple of Jim's presentations. I've heard Danny's presentations. I do a lot of research. We just did that 5-part series on grounding and bonding with Jim Vaughn on the ISPC Tailboard Talks podcast. Every one of those 5 episodes I walked away with at least one new thing I learned from Jim Vaughn. And so it reinforces everything we've been talking about today about continuing education, continuously learning, never stop learning. I don't care who it is. Again, it could be somebody in your class. I've walked away from many training classes saying, I didn't know that. And sometimes I'll go research it and look it up. Sometimes, okay, that makes sense. And I don't really have to do anything with it. And again, a lot of things I've gone back to my presentation and just made some little tweaks. Say, hey, man, I like that. I'm going to add that into my presentation. So that's how we get where we are. I mean, I'm no different than anybody else. I've worked in utilities. I've been a worker. I've been a supervisor. I've been a trainer. You name it. But I'm open-minded and willing to learn. Right. I'm always looking for opportunities to learn from whoever it is. I don't care who it is.
That's right.
That's how we all get better.
Yeah. Well, at the conference, there's one point I want to bring up that struck me. Because because I like to see, as I'm learning, I like to watch the people, because watching the people and their reactions, I see where the trainer, you, the presenter, is coming from, but it gives you an idea of what in the heck is going on behind the doors in our industry. And I'll tell you what, there's one thing that struck me during your presentation, and that is how many folks, it was confession time, Mark. It was confession time. And it struck me how many folks did not know that what they thought was the right way to ground was indeed not the right way. And they're extremely lucky. And there was several, not one or two, we're talking several folks that were stunned on what they were literally, their faces actually had a stunned look.
Yeah.
And they confessed that what they were learning was not what they were doing in the field. That struck me. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dave McPeak came up to me too at the intermission between the two classes and said, he said, hey, I probably just heard at least 6 or 8 people come out into that open conference area for the break. And I heard them talking to whoever they were with, saying, well, that just flipped everything on its head that I ever knew about grounding. And it's there's a couple key things, right? It's understanding the difference between grounding and bonding, right? That's the first thing you got to recognize, that grounding is for tripping relays, right? The protection of the system, and bonding is for protection of the worker. They're two different things, two totally different things. And so, we've always heard OSHA said you need to ground for the protection of the worker. Well, what they meant by that was you got to install your grounding in an equipotential fashion. And us the majority of us in the industry were just too dumb to figure that out. It's really the bottom line, right?
That's right.
And so now we're starting to, I shouldn't say me, and I think Mac's doing the same, Jim's doing the same. We're really starting, I said we're putting math in our presentations.
Yes.
We're intentionally doing some things in our presentations so that we can really bring it home, right? If some of those things we already talked about, you take out of my presentation in Charleston, you don't get that same look from them folks. They're just going to sit there and yeah. But when you can put Ohm's law on the board and you can mathematically show the audience that what you're telling them they need to do to equipotentially ground, math doesn't lie. The formula doesn't lie, right? You can't sit there and say, this guy don't know what the hell he's talking about. Bull crap, I just showed you on the screen using Ohm's law that every one of us has known, for the last however long it's been around. I can't refute that, right? He's okay, if I have this voltage and here's my resistance, here's the current I'm going to see through my body, right? There's no way around saying that isn't true anymore. And so there's some very strategic things that we have done at ISPC with our presentations to try to help folks understand. One, it's the law. You're required by OSHA to equipotentially ground all the time, every time, no matter what system you're working on. There's some that are easier to do it in than others, right? We won't refute that. It's normally pretty easy in the overhead world. It's a little more difficult because of all the conductive surfaces in the substation. When you get to the underground world, it becomes much more difficult to equipotentially ground, and you might have to look more towards isolation than EPZ. But no matter what, there's always a way that you can 100% protect yourself as the worker. And until you either finally see the light, or on the flip side, have an incident or an accident that you've either been privy to or part of, then things start to click, right? Say, oh, okay, now wait a minute. I've heard this a couple times in a presentation. I didn't really believe it, but now this just happened. And if I would have done this, it wouldn't have happened. Then things start to click. And it's unfortunate it takes a lot of folks the incident or the accident until they sit up and say, oh, maybe that guy did know what he was talking about, right? And so we're trying to bridge that gap with data, right? Okay,
Absolutely.
Here's the mathematical formula. Here's the we really stress the difference between grounding and bonding, right? And the math and using Ohm's law and understanding the pathways, right? And the other big thing that I stress a lot is you, the individual working in the de-energized grounded work zone, is a resistor. That's all you are up there, is one big 1,000 ohm resistor, give or take, depending on your body conditions.
Right.
But you're a resistor. That's all you are, right? And so it's specifically making people look at things a different way and understanding that, okay, now wait a minute. Here's what I'm doing up there, right? Grounding's for the system, bonding's for me. I'm a pathway, I'm a resistor. If I'm part of that pathway when something bad happens, whether it's induction or a fault, here's Ohm's law. I can figure out potentially how much current I'm going to see through my body. I know that 50 volts breaks my skin. If the voltage breaks my skin, current's flowing. If the current's high enough, it's going to kill me. So it's just putting all those things together and making people understand and see that. And I think it's helped a lot. I've been doing it now for close to 2 years. And you know, I think by your feedback from Charleston and some others' feedback as well, it's finally people are finally starting to say, oh, okay, these guys might have hit the nail on the head here. I think they're starting to really show people that, you know, and, you know, you're still always going to get well, what's the chances that a fault's going to hit the system? Well, I've been there. Mm-hmm. I've seen it. Right. And so, you know, that's where the experience, that's where having those conversations with your classes and and so on come in so handy, because, you know, you'll get people, I was talking about induction and the substation fence at a safety symposium for Siemens earlier this summer, and at break, one guy came out of the crowd and he said, "Hey, I want to show you a video," and he showed me this video of induction on a substation fence and what was going on there. And, you know, it's just, you start to get people to share things like that, and it starts to hit home.
That's amazing.
So
that's so cool. But hey, I want to give you one more challenge, Mark, for ISPC. So the first challenge, and I really think that you guys could design an outline and some sort of a course to share with end users how to develop the curriculum and the structure of bringing their contractors in and getting to know expectations from both sides and bringing the contractors together. Yeah, they're competitive and everything, but I tell you what, the contractors gave speeches from each company, had somebody give a speech on a topic of safety, and talk about openness, talk about, again, confession time. Yep. It was powerful. So I give you that. I'll leave you with one more challenge for ISPC, Mark. And I think you guys could be very effective in the second challenge. And I would love to see you all develop cross-training. So in other words, here at Bierer Meters, we have folks that build a particular tool. Once they learn it, we actually have them start teaching others how to build that tool. So if somebody's out for maybe a personal vacation, they're enjoying their family, we have somebody else in place, if there's a big order to fill, that can build that tool. So it keeps complacency, the big C word, complacency, from being maximized and being fostered. You destroy complacency. I would like to see you all develop curriculum, all right, for the industry, the electrical utility industry, to where folks, they start getting cross-trained in working underground. They get off the bucket. They work underground. Maybe the underground folks, they start getting trained in some service calls. They start getting trained in substation work. They start getting trained in some overhead work. And I think it would keep that attitude of continuous learning.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would help blossom that throughout our industry, to where it's not something that we shun, but it's something that we respect and that we're going to adopt as a new, we're going to evolve into this new continuous learning attitude. And we're going to invest that lack of production, because, hey, there's a curve. When you learn a new skill, there's a curve. But guess what? We're gonna invest in our people. They're important to us, and complacency is a huge killer in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we do to thwart that? And I think you guys would be very instrumental with all your backgrounds, to where you start cross-training our linemen. And those substation electricians, guess what? They're working high voltage. So they're not called electricians no more. They're called line workers, linemen. And guess those substation electricians, they're going to get a new title, lineman, line worker, and they're going to start working the service calls. They're going to start working overhead. I think this would be really neat. I think it would be a little bit of a struggle at first, but I think you guys could bust it. I think you could do it.
Yeah. Not that we got to talk about it here. I got a couple ideas running through my brain, so we'll get together offline, and I just want to make sure kind of our pathways align at what you're thinking there. But I got some potential thoughts on how that could potentially roll out.
Yeah, and I just want to thank ISPC, T&D Power Skills, SMI, Safety Management, what is it, International?
Yep.
Yeah, I would thank you guys. You guys typically do and present about 6 ECOS Linemen Safety National Webinars every year, 6. And this comes out of ISPC's working capital.
Yep.
Your companies pay for this, and you guys give back. And we have close to 20 different topics, all different topics, close to 20 Linemen Safety National Webinars. And anybody can reach out to me, get these. They're on Bierer Meters YouTube channel. They're made public now. And we're going to start taking it to electricculturesafety.com and populate electricculturesafety.com with all those public videos. And I think you all have some as well, Mark, that you all can share. And it's just amazing what you all have done. When I talked to almost 4 years now since we got this rolling with Danny Raines, #1. Well, he's actually #2. I introduced it, and that was #1. But anyways, almost 4 years ago, I will never forget, at the IP conference in Dallas, I asked Mac Turner and I asked Jimmy Vaughn and Danny Raines if they would be interested in starting to do these nationwide, Linemen Safety National Webinars nationwide, and create a line team, a safety coalition. And I'll never forget Mac Turner, Danny Raines, Jimmy Vaughn. I mean, I was like, these guys aren't even going to give me the time of day. And they immediately said they're in. Let's partner up. Immediately. I didn't even leave the conference without them agreeing. I mean, the table. We sat there at the table and they agreed. We're doing it. That's a great idea. All right. So I just want to thank you all for what you all do and how you guys give back to our industry. And I just want these folks, you guys are so talented. You have so much to offer, and these folks need you all as that third party, and to start growing their program, because most programs are lacking, and they're not complete. They're not dynamic. Some of them aren't even very exciting. Actually, talk about white noise, their own program. So folks, get a hold of Mark, get a hold of Matt, get some ISPC into your line team. You need it, definitely.
And you know, obviously we do consulting, but another big part of what we do is research and development, and building these webinars, programs, curriculums, all that type of stuff. And you know, that doesn't happen on its own, right? You know, most of the stuff we do, we have partners that kind of help us out, not necessarily financially, but just with doing work, right? The sub-curriculum that I'm developing, I have some partners that I can call on to get me information and get me photos and get me videos and get me, you know, I'll give the course back to them when I develop it and say, hey, take a look at this, make sure it hits the mark, make sure all the technical information is in there, so on and so forth. And so, you know, this stuff just doesn't happen with us, right? It's no different than what you're doing with the ECOS and everybody giving back. And we all got to be willing to give a little, right? To get where we want to go. Everybody's got to jump in and share a little bit. And you know, it just makes things so much nicer and so much easier on everybody when we can use all those resources to try to do what we're trying to do. So, you know, there's a lot of ways to help. If you want to help, get a hold of me, get a hold of Mac. You know, there's a lot of things we do behind the scenes that people don't see, that takes a lot of effort and resources. And we'd absolutely be, you know, interested in talking to you about how you could help. So,
yeah. And Mark, as far as I'm concerned, as my friend and my brother, you've always hit the mark. And
well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And appreciate you, man, and coming on board. And I know a lot of folks are going to benefit from your live wire story. And thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, well, appreciate the opportunity to share. I always enjoy, you know, like I said, when we first hopped on here, I'm normally on your side of the mic. So today I got to do all the talking, but yeah, it's you know, it's a good thing. I think it helps people understand, even just today, right? What's out there? What can I do? Where can I go for help? What, you know, all those types of things. So, yeah, appreciate, you know, your partnership, Brent, with ISPC. We greatly appreciate it. You guys at Bieers and ECOS have been great partners to us as well. And you know, look forward to continuing that relationship moving forward. I don't foresee it going anywhere. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, no, Mark, appreciate you, and keep in touch, brother.
Okay. I will do that. Thanks, Brent. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.